The following podcast on the Your Own Pay Podcast Network will contain adult content. Listener discretion is advised. More information about this episode can be found at yourownpay.com.
Hey, bro, let's get into this thing.
It's Damashe and Michael, just talking tech.
So the one reason I might switch back to the Mac is messages. Like, with Android on Windows, I could go to messages.google.com/web and drop a link to you. Like yesterday, for example, did you get that Todoist link that I sent?
I did.
Okay. So, weird thing about that I'll loop back to. I ended up sharing that link with myself by emailing it to myself, then copying it from the email to drop it into messages for you. And I'm like, man, this is convoluted. At least on Android, I could have went to web.messages or web.google.com/messages, dropped it in there, or used the Your Phone app. Now, I did go down the rabbit hole of saying, how can I send iMessages from Windows? And you want to know what they told me? Set up a dedicated Mac Mini in a... Maybe that's what prompted me to think of a Mac Mini. Set up a dedicated Mac Mini in a location. Use remote desktop on Chrome to access that to send your messages through messages on the Mac Mini.
What the fuck?
Yep, that's the guide that they give you if you do a search for how to send messages, how to send iMessages from Windows. Actually, I think I said how to send messages through an iPhone with Windows or something like that. But yeah, they wanted you to use the Chrome remote desktop, get that going on the Mac Mini or the Mac or a dedicated Mac, and then use remote desktop on Chrome on Windows to access the Mac, which I don't even know if VoiceOver would come through on that, although wouldn't it be a bad idea to try so we knew? And then go to messages on the Mac and send your message on the Mac and then switch back over to your Windows operating system and just keep that connection open if you want to send and receive messages on your Windows computer. I'm like, that's why has
dumb.
Apple not been sued for this? Oh,
Yeah, right. If you're gonna sue them for something, be like, look, man, I can't access my iMessages on my phone. I mean, on my Windows computer.
yeah.
I mean, that to me would be a reasonable web service to have in place, right? Like, I know it may take a little time, or it may have taken time to build it, but that's something that I feel like they should have been working on because of the exact problem you're having. You use Windows. You can't. It's irrational.
Yes.
It is irrational to expect a person to buy a Mac just so that they can send messages from their desktop when all of the other mobile, well, I guess there's only one now, but back in the days of Windows Phone still being a thing, you can send messages from there. You can send messages from Windows to your iPhone. Through your Android phone. You can do it from the Mac. You can do it from Linux. You can do it from anywhere. I could probably figure out a way to send a message through Android from my iPhone, like, without a whole lot of trouble. But yeah, you cannot do this thing. And I've done the whole messages thing from Chrome. Like, it is nice to be able to just go in a browser and send a message and read your messages. Like, that's. I don't know why we don't have this.
I know that I personally, and I bet others, would be more likely to use a web-based messaging service for iMessages or just messages in general on the iPhone. You could even take iMessages away. I don't care if I have iMessages or not. Send it through like a text message. It doesn't bother me. But I would use that more than I would use beta.music.apple.com.
Yeah, or tv.apple.com.
Yeah,
whatever the hell.
I forgot about that. I wonder, there's not a messages.apple.com, is there? I gotta look just to make sure.
Now I gotta go check.
That would be my luck. Nope, network error.
Oh, wait, network error. It didn't just say this doesn't exist?
No, it said network error. Probably because it's a subdomain. At least Windows said network error.
Messages.apple.com. Let's see. Oh, server IP address cannot be found. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And I tried iMessages.apple.com.
Messages.icloud.com.
Ooh, I don't know. Now I feel like we're trying to hack into Apple. Oh.
Server IP address could not be found. Oh, well, no messages through the web. Yeah. Seems like they should add that shit, though.
Come on.
Just
Apple.
saying.
Add it.
Even if you got to go to iCloud, even if you got to go to iCloud.com, log in and click on the messages button.
So instead of setting up that whole dedicated Mac system, why wouldn't I just buy a Mac to use like full time at that point?
Man, that is some hellified, what do you call it? Verification. That's not the word I'm looking
Justification?
for. Yes, there you go. That is some hellified justification for why you need to get a Mac, though. Like,
and it has to have 16 gigabytes, has to be the new Mac Mini, and I guess I'll be happy with 256 hard drive. Save a little bit of money, you know.
I wonder
a new phone.
I wonder how cheaply you're going to be able to get an Intel Mac Mini in a second. Since the M1.
So it looks like there is some Intel Mac Minis on the refurb store starting at $599. So I imagine that price may come down a little bit, but right now that's what we have. So
probably not going to come down from Apple necessarily, but I can see other third-party licensed Mac sellers like OWC. Yeah, eBay will be a place too.
I forgot about OWC. See, you always say OWC. I've never bought anything from them. You've bought a computer or two from them, haven't you?
I have not bought a computer for them. What I have bought from them, I bought cables from them. I bought my Thunderbolt 2 dock that I wish I would have kept, but I didn't because once the MacBook Pro got trashed and I had to go back to like the 2009 MacBook, there's no Thunderbolt. So it's Firewire.
Yeah.
So I was like, I guess I can sell this fucking dock then. I don't need that shit.
Man, you know how many times I made that mistake? And then a couple of weeks, no, I would say a year after I sold something.
Yeah.
Man,
yep.
I wish I really had that and I didn't sell it.
Because now I can't find a Thunderbolt 2 dock for a reasonable price because I feel like everybody is price gouging if you find them on like eBay or something. And then OWC released theirs again or resold theirs again at some point, but I was like, man, that is too close to the price of the Thunderbolt 3 dock, which I can't use, but I refuse to pay that amount of money for a device that is basically dead, like, because I don't even think you could do you probably could do the Apple Thunderbolt 2 to Thunderbolt 3 adapter and still use it, but if you have a Thunderbolt 3 capable Apple computer, like why would you buy a Thunderbolt 2 dock? That would just be crazy.
Or now you've got the Thunderbolt 4. So why would you buy a Thunderbolt 2 for the price of a Thunderbolt 3 when Thunderbolt 4 is coming out? Like, makes no sense.
So Thunderbolt 4 it's a very strange thing. I have mostly reliable information. Like I've heard this enough and read this in enough places that I believe this to be the case. So Thunderbolt 3, when it was introduced, Thunderbolt is a spec in general. Thunderbolt 3, when it was released, Windows PC makers didn't always implement the full spec for Thunderbolt 3. So they would take parts of the spec, but they wouldn't implement the full specification for Thunderbolt 3. And for anybody not steeped in, this sort of geekery, including myself, the best correlation I can make is if you think about HDMI. Some TVs with HDMI have that CEC thing where when you push a button and to wake up your Apple TV or your Roku, for example, it automatically turns on the TV and switches to the right input. Not all TVs with HDMI have that functionality, right? That is a part of the HDMI spec, but not everybody implements it. Similar thing with Thunderbolt 3 for Windows PCs. Some Windows PCs did implement the entire spec. A lot did not. Apple always has implemented the full Thunderbolt spec. I think partially because they were involved in creating it. And people didn't have another option. So, somebody would be extremely pissed off if they showed up with a Thunderbolt device and it didn't work because Apple didn't implement the full spec. And then it's not like I could just be like, well, fuck that. I'm not buying an Apple Mac anymore. I'm going to go buy a Dell Mac. It's not an option. So what Thunderbolt 4 does is I'm going to say this, and this is not exactly 100% correct. in the way that I am saying it, but the point of what I'm saying is going to be correct, which is Thunderbolt 4 basically merges all of the spec and makes it one spec. So like if you implement, if a device is Thunderbolt 4 certified, that means it has implemented the entire spec. If you did not implement the entire spec, you will not have that Thunderbolt 4 certification. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, so in summary, you can't just half-ass implement the Thunderbolt 4 specs. You have to do it all or none.
Yep, you have to do all or you don't get it. Like that's how that works. Instead of where Thunderbolt 3 was, where you could get Thunderbolt 3 certification without having fully implemented every feature and capability of Thunderbolt 3. That will not happen with 4. So if something says it's Thunderbolt 4 compatible, it gets everything. Now, in practice, what that actually means is you get the up to, and I say up to because these are theoretical, not real world speeds, 40 gigabits, 40 gigabits a second transfer speeds over Thunderbolt, which was there in Thunderbolt 3, but you had to implement it. It is also backwards compatible to any Thunderbolt 3 device. That's where it starts to get confusing. It also handles power delivery, so that a Thunderbolt 4 port will handle, the maximum power that the device needs. So, charging up your MacBook or your Windows computer or whatever. It also has has to have support for USB 3 in all of its variations and generations that exist. The other thing that Thunderbolt 4 introduces is what they're calling hubbing. What I think of it as is the ability to continue the chain of Thunderbolt devices. So typically with Thunderbolt in its entire history of existing, if you plugged in a hard drive, let's say you had a dock, like a Thunderbolt 2 dock, you plug that in, all you got was USB ports. You would get one additional port that you could chain. So you have 2 Thunderbolt ports. One would be obviously coming from your computer going to the device. There would be one additional Thunderbolt port on the OWC one at least. Whatever I plugged into that Thunderbolt port on the hub to extend it, that ended the chain of devices. So I couldn't plug in a second hub because nothing else would work on that second hub, like it would be done. So you plug in a hard drive, your chain right there is terminated, or you plug in a dock, your chain is done. This I'm really going to explain badly. I will find some links to put into the show notes at yourownpay.com/dm62. I will find some links to put into the show notes at yourownpay.com/dm62 to better explain this, because I feel like I'm explaining the killing of the chain with Thunderbolt kind of terribly. But essentially, hubbing, what that will allow you to do is with Mike's MacBook Pro that he has, because I hear, I don't know this for certain, but I hear that the update to Big Sur on any MacBook Pro that has Thunderbolt 3 will give it the Thunderbolt 4 capabilities, because it's mostly just kind of like a firmware deal in Apple's case, because they implemented the full spec. So at this point, Mike could plug in a Thunderbolt 3 dock, and then in addition plug in an additional Thunderbolt drive and another Thunderbolt dock or something like it. Basically, it kind of extends the capabilities of the port. So instead of Mike being restricted to that one hub and its USB ports being useful to him, he could also make use of an additional Thunderbolt device plugged into that hub to extend his Thunderbolt range. That's it. We'll drop some links in the show notes because we're getting to some technical stuff that I don't fully 100% understand. I understand in general what it means, but trying to explain it, I don't understand it well enough to teach it. But basically with Apple stuff, Thunderbolt 4 doesn't matter as much. And if you look at the spec sheet for their new computers, they will say Thunderbolt 3 if you get down deep enough into the spec sheets about the ports. Because Thunderbolt 4 is just an implementation detail, which Apple has already complied with. So it makes sense to me that updating a Thunderbolt 3 capable Mac Mac computer, whether it's a laptop or a desktop, would give you the Thunderbolt 4 capabilities, because most of that really is just forcing everybody else to follow the spec anyway. I think the hubbing is the only thing that Mac users will gain with Thunderbolt 4 compatibility. Right. Windows users, on the other hand, get a ton of shit, because there was shit you didn't get if your vendor computer maker did not fully implement the spec.
But you can't send messages from Windows using iMessages.
But you still can't send messages from Windows to people on iOS.
Let's talk something. I want you to teach me something. Those who don't know, Damashe, I'm putting you on the spot, has acquired an app and convinced me to acquire an app that I've heard about for years now. I heard a demo of it about a month ago. Finally pulled the trigger last week. I think it was last week. Time doesn't exist. This is what I think we have learned. All of us should have learned this by now from the pandemic and everything going on. Like, time really is like it's non-existent. Like there's an infinite time scale, and you don't know where you are on this timeline. You just think you know. Clocks and except
calendars.
for those of us who are working 8 hours a day from home, you have some semblance of time, but it all eventually blurs into.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Calendars and clocks and all of those things just give us fake a false sense of understanding of the universe, whereas it really doesn't matter.
So, Lear is what I'm talking about. And in conjunction with Lear, it's spelled Lire for people who don't know why we kind of have a misunderstanding of the pronunciation of the name. We will have a link to it over at yourownpay.com/dm62. I did check to verify that was the right one. And we will
proactively also add in a little snippet of the translation of it.
Yes. Maybe Anyways, I was trying to think of what we're going to do with that. So.
I was just going to go to Google Translate and type it in and then have it.
I wasn't sure if you were talking about grabbing that part of Jonathan's interview with him, and I'm like, that might be copyright problems.
Nah. I was just going to go to Google Translate and type in the word and have it speaking in French and just record that and drop it in. So,
Feed Wrangler is what I'm using now, and I got to know more. What is a stream? Is that what they call them in Feed Wrangler?
Yep.
First of all, what's Feed Wrangler and what's a stream?
So Feed Wrangler is one of the numerous RSS syncing services that arose from the ashes of Google Reader. RIP Google Reader.
Put some funeral music there. Oh.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe I can drop some funeral music right here. We'll have a moment of silence for Google Reader because it was amazing. Feed Wrangler is one of the many services that arose. It is one of the ones that is still around because there were a lot in the early days after Google News was shut down. Wrong product. Google Reader was shut down. Google News has not yet been shut down. Sorry, people.
Not yet.
Calm down. If you're using Google News, it still exists. As of the time of this recording anyway. Could be gone by the time you hear this. I don't know.
Right.
Because it's Google. It is Google. It is what they do. But Feed Wrangler is a service that allows you to, it has web interface and it has apps. I don't use the apps, but it also is supported by many of the third-party RSS readers available across platforms. I chose it after a rather extensive search. I didn't look at every single service that existed, but I looked at the ones that had some type of business model, at least at the time. I didn't look at any of the open source ones that you could host yourself, although quite a few of those have also disappeared in the intervening years. So I looked at things like In Order, Feedly.
I looked at the old reader, I think is what it's called, and I realized that I would be paying $10 more a year for it than what Feed Wrangler costs. So that's why I switched back over to Feed Wrangler.
Yeah, I think I took a look at that.
Didn't switch, but started looking at it again.
Yeah, I think I took a look at them too and realized that most of the features I would have been getting that I would have been paying for, like I'm not going to use those because I don't want to go to the web and read my news. But yeah, so Feed Wrangler is a sync service, so you sign into an RSS app with it, and as you subscribe to feeds, they get added to Feed Wrangler, and so when you go to a different device, it you still have all your feeds. It is just a syncing service on the back end. Does have some, nice little features. It is from the developer that we oftentimes reference, at least here, even if we don't directly mention him, David Smith.
We mentioned him 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, I mean, we
should have
referenced
called
him
it
quite
the
a
David
bit.
Smith episode.
We referenced him quite a bit because we're always saying plus plus. To the point that Mike now calls it TV plus plus, I think. Nope, news plus plus. Even though it's not the name of the service. But
I seriously did not mean to. It was just one of those slips that news plus plus. Oh wait,
that's not. But David Smith makes the apps Sleep plus plus, Pedometer plus, the app I've been using for a long time. I just installed
that today.
Workouts plus plus, which I need to look at that again because I don't quite understand what it is anymore. I don't think. Or maybe the Workouts app from Apple has seriously gotten better since Workouts Plus Plus was introduced. He also makes a couple other apps that are super popular. You may have heard of Widget Smith. Has kind of taken over the world since iOS 14 launched. And there's a couple other apps he makes that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. But anyway, he created Feed Wrangler as a sync service. And I signed up for it again after looking at several other services. I actually used Feedly for a while because they had a free level. But I didn't like his web interface. And occasionally I want to go do stuff in the web interface, or there were features that you could only access in the web interface, because we were in a time back then where while these new services were popping up and trying to distinguish themselves with different features, etc., the RSS Reader applications had to catch up. First by adding support for different services, and then secondly, going back to try to retroactively add in, the feature capabilities that they could, that were available to them for the different services. So all of that stuff was in flux. I used Feedly for a while, and then went and tried Feed Wrangler. And the 2 things I liked about Feed Wrangler is their pricing was reasonable. It was $18.99 a year.
Yep.
That price has not changed. Still the same price. I was familiar with the developer, and the web interface was mostly accessible for the stuff that I was trying to do there, or poking around to look at different features there. So I ended up going with Feed Wrangler. I have been using Feed Wrangler since. I have tried a couple of services that cropped up over the intervening years. I actually think In Order may have been one of those later services. But I've stuck with Feed Wrangler for its pricing, its simplicity, and it seems stable. Like I haven't ever had any problems with feeds disappearing, et cetera, et cetera. And it's supported by most of the RSS apps I have tried, other than NetNewsWire. So yeah, that's Feedly in a very giant nutshell.
No. Retake
nope.
that. You just said that's Feedly, and that is not right.
That is Feed Wrangler in a very large nutshell.
And I do want to let people know that what I feel would be the most important thing from the web interface is fully accessible on Windows, and I believe Damashe told me it is on Mac, and that is adding RSS feed. So if you're browsing a website, for example, I just went and put the Nerdviddles blog in there because I always forget about that. We'll link to it at dm62. But I went into Feed Wrangler, I grabbed their RSS feed, copied it to the clipboard, went into Feed Wrangler, logged in, thank you, 1Password, and then I clicked on the Add New Feed button, I think it was, or it was actually a link, and then I just pasted it in, and I haven't looked on my phone, but I'm confident that it will show up on my phone now. So that's super nice.
Yeah, and I think they may even have a bookmarklet that you could.
I think they do too.
To your thing.
I did try their app. Did you say you didn't try it?
The bookmarklet?
No, the Feed Wrangler app on iOS.
Feed Wrangler app. I haven't tried it in some years. I tried it when I initially.
The buttons look labeled, but I've been spoiled by Lear, especially with the ability to configure what VoiceOver reads. Everything got read in Feed Wrangler's app, but you could do everything from it. Like it's completely usable, but I prefer the customization. What's that word I'm looking for?
Customization.
Yes, customization. Customization that feed or that
customizability
Yes.
Yeah, and that may have been what I ultimately didn't like about it is that like I have been I've been using Feedly apps. Jeez, man, them Feedly guys must be talking about me or something. Do I owe them money too? I have been using Lear since I don't know, like I want to say since it came out, because it was the feature that Lear and Lear is the RSS app that we have both kind of settled on. Mike is more, more freshly into the environment. But one of the big advantages of Lear when it was first announced, whenever that happened to be, is that 2012, it would pull the full text of articles instead of the way that a lot of RSS apps at the time handled it, which is they would present you with the summary from the feed and you will have to click the link to read more. Like you see when you go to a WordPress blog and it has a little blurb and then read more, and then you have to click that to go to the next page. I didn't want to do that because that especially back then, that would kick you out of the app into Safari. There wasn't even a Safari view controller back then. Either apps would send you to Safari or they had their own custom in-app web browser, which was terrible for the most part. So that's one of the things that drew me to Lear. In addition to the fact that it was very heavily focused on voiceover accessibility, like the developer has been aware of voiceover accessibility since he launched the app, and it now is one of the few apps I have seen that has its own specific settings section for voiceover controls and how you want voiceover to speak things and in what order you want it to speak things, etc.
And you can turn things off or change that order, and it is super nice, especially once you get it set up. And it's one of those things like, man, the customization. So for example, read all button in Lear is on the bottom right-hand side of the toolbar by default. And you have a star or unstar. I've already went and changed mine to change it to good links for the star or unstar. Thank you, Damashe, for that recommendation. And Marty, got to give him a shout out too, because he recommended good links to me too. So thank you, Marty, too. And then I also went and I changed the read all the read all button from the right to the left, because every time I would look down at the left side, I don't know why, just naturally, to find the read all button, and it wasn't there, but now it is there. So I just love the customization. And this is not a sponsored podcast by Lear. We're just sharing with you.
Just sharing with you. Because Mike is new to the app, so we can talk about it and,
and it's not Apple Watch talk.
Yeah, and we could talk about it in a semi-educated way because we both have used it. And Mike means the mark all as read button
yes.
is what he's referring to when he keeps saying read all button.
Yes, that is what I meant.
But yeah, I like Lear. Mike, you had a question for me about what are streams in Feed Wrangler, right?
Yes.
So my summary of streams in Feed Wrangler, and I will go look. I will drop a link in the show notes to the documentation page for streams from Feed Wrangler directly. But my summary, and the best way for me to sum it up for people, is think of it as a saved search. So you put in the criteria that you want to search for based off the feeds that you are subscribed to. And it can include one feed or all of your feeds. It can, be across one set of, articles or everything that you're subscribed to and filter that out. But it is a custom search. So you can search for specific terms or reject specific terms, which is a thing that I first started doing with it, and save those. So let's say, for example, I want to look across all of the articles that I read and I want anything about iOS and automation or iOS automation to be saved as a stream. So that would cover a number of sites that I am subscribed to, including Mac Stories and Rosemary Orchard and the Omni Group and a ton of other places, right? But anybody comes up with those terms in the title of their article, then I should see that as a custom search, which means I can very quickly, if I'm just interested in reading right now about automation, let's see what's new with iOS automation, I can go read those articles.
That makes perfect sense now. So it's pretty much your customized search that will search the feeds that you're subscribed to. I was under the impression it was like a Google search, so it would search the web for those terms. So now that makes a lot more sense to me.
No. It's going to search the stuff that you're subscribed to. The other way that it is useful, and the way that I first started using it, it was one of the streams was one of the things that drew me to Feed Wrangler as well, is because I subscribe to some sites where there's a ton of crap. Like I don't mean crap in the sense of like it's terrible news. It's just like stuff I'm not interested in. So instead of me having, opening up my RSS reader and saying, oh, you have 352 unread articles. Well, if I filter out all of the stuff dealing with gaming, then that number drops significantly, especially around this time of year when there's a new PlayStation, a new Xbox, and Nintendo Switches.
Nintendo has another great month, and
and Switches are hard to come by, and so I don't care about any of that stuff. Right? I'm not a gamer. I have never been a gamer.
Side note: if anyone needs a Switch for your kids, reach out to me and I'll sell you Mallory's.
Wow, shots! Oh my, jeez, no man, nobody reach out to Mike for his Switch to sell Mallory's. Unless you don't like Michael.
Because then she'll start wanting to play it.
Oh, wait, she doesn't play it?
No, she doesn't play it. It's on top of the filing cabinet.
See, I thought she
So, I mean, if someone wants to pay me like $500 for it, I'm down with that. It's in great shape.
It's only been taken out of the box, and that's it.
Pretty much.
Perhaps Remy licked it a couple of times.
So I do got to follow up with something that we were talking about on the phone with you, though. So when I first got started with Lear, I used the standalone service, so I didn't synchronize anything because I didn't want to go spend $20 on, $19 on Feed Wrangler, but I ended up doing it anyways.
Hold on one sec. Let me stop you right there and just to expand upon something that you just said in case you were not going to do so. So Lear, when you download it, has the ability to do what it calls standalone mode, which will allow you to subscribe to articles, but they don't sync. So like if you have an iPhone and an iPad, you go to your iPad and download Lear, you're not going to see the same stuff. That's the functionality that a syncing service provides. I would say that if you happen to get Lyre, which is $9.99 in the US App Store, first, let me, I have to do what do they call it? A PSA, public service announcement. Do not buy Reader, REEDER 5, which has iCloud syncing of your RSS feeds if you are a voiceover user. Nothing in the app is labeled. Absolutely. Like you don't even get to navigate a portion of the screen. It's like there's one button, maybe two buttons that you can see inside of the app once you get into it. Like, don't do it. I did it. It's only $5. It looks interesting. It syncs through iCloud. Like, oh, that's great. I don't have to pay for a sync service. Awesome. Don't just save yourself the trouble. But okay, continue on, Mike.
So I started with standalone and I subscribed to a couple of Google alerts. Is that what they're called?
I don't know, man. You told me about these things recently.
Google Alerts. So I subscribed to a couple of Google Alerts RSS feeds. My PSA is don't click that link at the bottom of the email that says subscribe via RSS. We will have a link in the show notes showing you actually how to do it because that subscribe via RSS does not work. We tried it. And so I subscribed to a couple of Google Alerts and mainly for local news. And some of the articles would say, best food in less than B greater than North Bend, Oregon, less than /B greater than. And that was driving me crazy. However, when I brought those feeds into Feed Wrangler must have stripped the HTML out of the title because the same exact feeds were not having that issue. Like I don't see that syntax in that title. So I just wanted to let you know about that.
Interesting.
Yeah, like the same exact articles because I re-imported my OPML into Feed Wrangler, which, by the way, side note, you would not have been able to do that on iOS a couple of versions ago, but it was a super simple process on iOS 14 to import a saved file that was on my phone.
So you went to the web browser and...
Yep.
I wonder if you could not have done it from directly within Lear, though.
Oh, I could have. Maybe that is what I did. I don't remember. Yeah, that's what I did. So I've been doing a lot of moving stuff around, coming from Android, where I'm using multiple different platforms, to embedding myself in the Apple ecosystem. So one of the things I recently did that I got confused with is I moved all of my links from Pocket over to Good Links. And that process included me downloading a file and then importing it into Good Links. So one or the other, I was able to browse for a file in Safari and upload it, and it worked just fine. Like it was a seamless process. I was surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it does work. It has been there since they kind of added the Files app. You've had that capability. Like I have uploaded many of a service that shall remain nameless, that I ran its video URL through a shortcut to convert it to an MP3 file and then uploaded it into my Overcast FM
through Overcast
account.
website.
Yeah, through the Overcast website, because you cannot do that yet within Overcast, the app. Side note, that is a feature that I'm really kind of missing right now from Castro. Not to mention that Castro's shared link interface is actually really nice. Down to giving you the link to the Overcast or other podcast players on the page. It's like, that is really nice.
So I copied the link. I don't remember actually how I did it, but I got the link of a Castro thing. I did get into the web interface and see that. And I'm like, man, this gives you everything. Like all the podcast players on the bottom.
Yes.
That is nice.
Yes. Super nice. Now you have to know to go to the bottom and go look at it.
I do remember.
Initially, I did not see it.
I was on Twitter looking at one of the podcast episodes that I shared on the desktop, and I clicked the link on the desktop, and I could play that episode, well, on the laptop. I don't know why I said desktop, but I played the episode from Chrome, and then I saw those links at the bottom. I was trying to figure out, how did I get to that link on my phone without it opening Castro?
Yeah.
Because it automatically opens Castro if someone shares a Castro link with you.
Yeah, that's what happens with Overcast. If you don't have Overcast installed or you're on the desktop, it will take you to overcast.fm, to that show page or whatever, and you can play the episode in the browser. But I don't actually need to test that. Mike, did you test that? I think you tested that actually.
What?
If
Overcast?
I send you an Overcast link, will it,
Nope.
when it opens in the browser, do you see the
Castro link?
Yeah, does it offer
Or
like
other I did
other
not
podcasts.
send me a link because I don't know if you've sent me a link recently. Well, you've sent me links, but I don't know if you've sent me a podcast link recently.
Right. I'll try
Matt
that.
Geek Gab, send me that. Unless I don't have it anymore.
Good
Then
deal.
I can subscribe to that. So that was my primary topic I wanted to talk about. I was curious if you took a look at that link I sent you from Todoist, because it made me start thinking about reminders, and not only reminders, but setting defer until tasks. I don't know if I'm going to go through that process, but it was a more easier to understand than the Reddit guide.
Oh my! Oh no! I didn't even read it because your audio message mentioned the quick add feature on the Mac, Command Shift A, which does work on the Mac. However, I changed mine because I tried. I'm like, that doesn't work. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, because I changed mine to Command Option Shift A because I had Command Shift A mapped to something else.
And you don't even use that. You use Launchbar to add.
Yeah, I do, but I did customize a shortcut because also in Safari specifically, Command Shift A brings up the autofill menu. I knew it did something, so I either I customize it or on the Mac they do something. I think I customized it.
So I'm going to try to summarize this, and forgive me if I get it wrong, but in summary, what they did is they set one task with a due date of, let's say, next Monday. And inside of that task, they have subtasks which those subtasks don't show up until next Monday because they're not due until next Monday. And then you can start working on those subtasks. And if you want, you can set reminders on each subtask for the actual due date of the time that subtask needs to be completed by.
I see.
So, and then what they say is put it into a project that's like someday soon or something, like make a random project that you can put that task in, and then you won't see the delayed task until it's actually time for that project to begin. And I'm like, oh, that might work. And I think that's what the Reddit guy was trying to explain doing, but Todoist explains it in a very straightforward manner.
No, this guy was doing shit with labels and shit, though.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, that's because I'm like, man, there's a label, and then you got to remember to go in here and take that label off and put this. So what the Reddit guy basically was doing to sum up the whole complex thing that he was making, is he was using a combination of labels and custom filters so that you would only see stuff that didn't have a specific label. So if you had a defer label, it wouldn't show up, but like he was doing it, like that, which obviously, well, I'm not gonna say obviously, it is actually a way I thought about doing it before reading that post. I'm like, well, that gets too convoluted because then I have to tie a date to a label. How do I do that? I don't know. Never mind. This thing actually sounds interesting though.
So check that link out when you get a minute, because I think it might, though it's not exactly how OmniFocus handles it, it might be a more easier way to get accomplished what we've been trying to get accomplished. Now, I have not implemented it, but I'm going to play around with it because, I wanted to see if you took a look at the link anyways to see what you thought of it. But it should work. And Todoist explains why they don't they don't call it a defer date. I think they call it a wait to start date or whatever, but it's the same thing. They explain why they don't do that, because if you have notes, because you can add notes to your tasks, and let's say you're browsing your tasks and you want to look at your notes, you want to see all of those at once, but this way they give a better explanation than that. But this way we'll let you hide things out of your today view or your upcoming view unless it's within that upcoming period of time. And secondary, I did discover yesterday, and maybe it was earlier than yesterday, but yesterday for sure, because I did it yesterday. You can go and change your date and choose a date from the calendar on a task, and then the save button in the bottom right corner will let you actually save that new date. So that seems to be working appropriately again.
Okay. Good deal. Yeah, I will read the article. I thought you were sending me something to like reference like the shortcuts or something on the Mac or something. I was like, oh, well, he just told me what he probably wanted to tell me about in that article, so I won't read it.
No, slightly convoluted because I know exactly what you're talking about. So what happened? I got to go down this path and give you a quick explanation. I imported all of my links from Pocket, right? Mm-hmm. And then I was looking through good links, and one of those was a YouTube link that I saved months ago. Had to have been months ago, but it was a YouTube link that says 9 ways to get tasks into Todoist. And so I clicked that and started watching that, and that's where the shortcut came through. And then I Googled something about how to best use reminders with Todoist, and that sent me down a rabbit hole. Then I ended up on Todoist help documentation, and then I sent you that link right after I sent you that voice message.
Gotcha. Why the hell would good links on the Mac want to send me notifications? What do you want to notify me about?
Yeah, I asked that same question. Maybe they want to notify you when you add a new link.
Screw that. I'm trying to see if I can import my whatchamacallit from here.
Instapaper?
Yeah.
I really don't. I mean, that's everything that was on my list that I did not add to Todoist.
Nope, there's only one tab on good links in the settings in its general. I have to do it from iOS.
Is there a toolbar?
Yeah, it didn't have anything to do with that. I'll do it from iOS. You just kind of reminded me of it because I hadn't done it yet. And I was like, oh, let me go start that process right now if I can from the Mac. Probably tell people about good links, or did we talk about good links prior to this episode?
We have not talked about good links.
So, Mike, what is good links? You've referenced it a bunch of times. People are going to want to know what is good links. So let's head off the Twitter alerts that I may or may not see asking about good links.
So Good Links is a read it later service. It does cost what?
Hold on, what's it? Oh, new version of Rocket. Okay. All right, go ahead.
You still have Rocket installed? Isn't that live chat or not live chat, but that Slack alternative?
Oh, no. You got to put the .chat on the end of that to reference that. Although I've been meaning to take a look at it again. Honestly, I need to throw it up on a server somewhere and take another look at it again before I jump into the Slack rabbit hole that I don't really want to jump into.
Slack is fun. Just give in to the Slack bot.
Slack is fun, man. But there's some features I would get with the free self-hosted Rocket chat that would cost me a ton of money in Slack.
Yeah.
Just saying. No, Rocket. Rocket is an app, and I got there because I had an update for anybody, depending on how we edit this. Rocket on the Mac is an application that allows you to do kind of like Slack. Oh, so the simple version is actually, thanks for bringing up Slack. Actually, it lets you do Slack style emojis everywhere on Mac OS. So, how in Slack you can type like : smiley : or whatever like that, and then it'll, make that into a smiley face and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, this brings that functionality to all of your apps on the Mac. So when I'm sending emojis in messages or something like that, from the Mac, I'm just typing like : THU and then it'll start to show me, or TH, for example. So if I type : TH, the first thing that's probably going to come up for me is the thumbs up emoji, but I can arrow down and have it read out other things. So like the thinking face and all of that. That's why you see me using more emojis or a more wide variation of emojis now than normal. It's for that reason.
Can't you do that same thing with Launch Bar too?
You can, except that you have to go to Launch Bar and then search. You have to bring up Launch Bar and then go to emoji.
Search for emoji and then
I think there's actually a shortcut I have set up, or I used to have set up for Launch Bar's emojis. The reason that I tried out Rocket, well, one, I beta tested Rocket because when I heard about it, I was like, well, I got to check this out, first of all, because it just sounded cool. And then there was accessibility problems, and I chatted with the developer, and he started working on it. I think a couple of other people, maybe some that listen to this show, also tested Rocket on the Mac. And he has really implemented voiceover support quite excellently. It's quicker, honestly, for my emoji use to do the : couple of letters and then, hit return to activate that specific emoji versus going through Launch Bar. And sometimes Launch Bars wouldn't paste in certain apps. Like I would try to put the emoji in and it wouldn't paste. And now it's just and also at the time, I think I was also using Slack when I started using it. Like I was using it more than I use it now. So, because I think it was around the DMD time when we were using Slack that one time is when I started using Rocket, actually.
DMD time?
BE 101. Yeah, the name change is taking full effect in my brain.
Yes, it has.
But yeah, around IB 101 when we were using Slack there, and then I think as a team we were kind of spending more time in Slack. I think is when I started using this, and yeah, it just works everywhere. Pretty nice app. Free with an optional license purchase to unlock something. I don't even remember what the hell it is. I gave the guy $5 because I'm like, man, you put in a hell of a lot of work to make this shit accessible. So there you go. It was only $5. So good links.
Back to good links after that slight diversion. And I appreciate it because I heard about the app, but I didn't know it was accessible. So I'll have to go check it out. So Good Links is a read it later service that will allow you to add links to the application. It is only available on Mac OS, iOS, and I think iPad OS. And it will allow you to add links to the database. So let's say you want to go look at some links because you are a presenter on a weekly show and you want to use some of those links for producing your show notes while you're browsing through your RSS feed. You can add them to good links. You can tag them with the name of that show. Kelly Co. And you can then go back and look at all of the links throughout the week that you thought would be good to mention on the show. It is a lot like Instapaper or Pocket, if you've heard of those, except for two major caveats. Number one, it does sync with only iCloud, so you can't access it on other devices. And number two, it is a one-time purchase versus a monthly purchase. Or annual purchase. Now, I was introduced to it both by Damashe and Marty. I think I mentioned that earlier. And at first, I'm like, man, I don't want to pay for something else. And then I had some iTunes credit because of some work that I was doing, and so I went ahead and just picked it up. And it remarkably is very accessible. There's a couple of mislabeled. Well, there's one mislabeled button that I need to reach out to the developer about. But aside from that, like it works as expected. It's a very simple interface, both on iOS and on macOS, and it makes it really simple, especially when you're using Lear, because you can go into the settings, change the star button to good links, and then tap that, and you can tag the link and go. Like, that's all you need to do. All of a sudden, it's saved in your database, and then next time you're on your wife's Mac, next time you're on the Mac, you can go and look at your links and start composing your show notes. And what I actually did this most recently is I started composing my show notes in drafts, and then I jumped back over on the phone, finished up the draft because Siri was creepy and said, "Oh, you want to work on this draft?" And it was a draft that I wanted to work on. And I'm like, oh, you're kind of scaring me, Siri. You're turning into Google. And no, you're not. But then I was able to hit the share or the actions button and then email, and it sent it over I typed in the addresses. Oh, side note, in drafts, when I hit actions and I hit mail, and it took the first line and used that as a subject line and sent out the rest of it as the body, I typed in Kelly, right? And it autofilled, and I could just tap his name. You know what I'm talking about there, where you type in KEL and you can autofill. Well, the weirdest thing happened. The next thing that was in the autofill was Rumya. And then I tapped that, and the next thing that was in the autofill was Matt, and all of the team members kept coming up into the autofill, kind of like that feature I was telling you about in Gmail that I really liked on the web interface. And I'm like, I wonder if this is a effect of drafts or if it's something that Apple Mail is doing. Either way, I really liked it, and it was super nice, and I got all the team members added without even having to think about it. And I even got the audio director put in there, even though it didn't need to have her in there, but she was in there. We ran with it, and it sent it out. Like, it was nice. So that's Good Links in a quick recap with a side of drafts for you.
Yeah, you may want to think about creating an action that just automatically emails in the background when you run it. And just
like you can add their email addresses to that action automatically, and then just hit.
And when you run it, it will, just have it be something like, show notes to AMI or something like that, so you don't ever mistakenly send them the wrong thing. And then just have it do the markdown conversion to RTF and send the email in the background without you even having to.
So I could do that with Twitter too.
What do you mean?
I mean, like when I'm getting ready to go live, for example, I can set up a tweet that says, tune in to amiaudio.ca to listen to the Kelly Co show live right now with a link to the listen live link, and put that in drafts, save that in drafts, and then just run an action that says tweet out AMI show or something.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because right now I was copying and pasting it, and I was like, man, there's got to be an easier way. So I got to play with actions.
Let me I'll see if I can find it in my drafts. And if I can share it with you, I'll send it straight to you. The Twitter action in drafts, because it'll post to Twitter. Like, you have to go through the little process connected to your Twitter account and all of that. But it will post to your Twitter account without
even opening
drafts.
any other app.
Yeah. Because it just uses the Twitter API to post.
If we can find it, we'll post it at yourownpay.com/dm62, unless it's like a
No, it's not a
post
super
this
secret
anywhere.
thing. I got it out of the Access directory.
Yeah.
Greg Pierce made it.
You
when
told
he
me about
first
that,
was
and I was going to
working
go
on-
look it up, and then I didn't. So
Yeah, he made it when he first started working on that capability, like to do direct API connections. He was like, well, here's an example action that lets you tweet, directly from drafts without having to ever leave drafts. And he's like, it keeps me out of Twitter too. So,
yeah, good times. Good times. So what's new in your automation life? Anything new that you want to mention, or do we want to?
nothing new really automation wise. I'm still kind of playing around with widgets, figuring out which apps I want to use. Good links has started to become a serious part of my usage also. Upgrading to Leary 4 has been interesting.
Changes and some of the things are the same, and widgets are interesting on iOS.
They are.
They have to grow. They're like babies still, because you can almost do everything you want to do, but in the next probably 2 operating systems, I think they're going to become more fully featured and have a lot more abilities than what they currently have.
Yeah. I think a lot of the limitations of widgets right now are based off the fact that essentially, so they got their start from the same type of complications that are on the watch.
Right.
So most complications on the watch can show you some information that can be updated at random times in the background by the OS. And then tapping on them can launch you into, the app or into a specific area or specific action inside of the app. So that's kind of where widgets got their base from. So I think, and honestly, I think that I have not seen widgets on Big Sur at all. They're a thing too. They have new widgets there. Because I haven't looked at Big Sur at all. No Sir to Big Sur has been my spoke all summer. Ever since the first beta dropped, and then people figured out that if you installed it by doing the whole little create a new APFS volume trick and then install it over there, it completely boinked up your installation of Catalina / Mojave, whatever you happen to be running. I've stayed away from it. One, I don't have an external drive to use. Two, I'm not going to take the risk that my current system stops working or all of a sudden Mac OS doesn't recognize Catalina anymore because it got touched by Big Sur. Yeah. So left that alone.
I will make that sacrifice for you and not tell Andrew, and then he'll go to use the Mac for school and nothing will work.
So it is a huge visual design change. So he will notice as soon as he brings it up, like he's going to notice that there is something different. Just to be fair, I would check to make sure that whatever he actually uses for school does work before you upgrade.
As long as Chrome works, he should be good.
No, I don't think there's any problem with Chrome. It'll eat as much RAM as it always has.
Right.
So, yeah. But yeah, I think it's a good start. While it's a step back from the widgets that we used to have in iOS in a sense, and it's nowhere near the functionality and capabilities of widgets on Android, I think it is a good start for Apple in the sense that they're now starting fresh. And as they build up the capabilities of widgets, that should also translate into them building up the capabilities of watchOS complications. Yes. So I think we should see a lot more growth there. Like Mike said, in the next couple of OSs, I expect them to become extremely powerful. Sort of like Apple and their M1 chip. I think there's a lot of complaints about them. Well, I'm not going to say complaints. There's a lot of, what's the word? Trepidation. That's a good word. There's a lot of trepidation from people about the M1. Number one, because you can only, with the current release of Apple stuff, which will be the MacBook Air, the lower end MacBook Pro, so the one with 2 ports, 4, and the Mac Mini, which by the way, I didn't notice initially is back in silver. So the Intel version of the Mac Mini that they're still selling is still space gray. But the new M1 Mac Mini is silver, which makes me think they're really going to do like a Mac Mini Pro or Mac Pro Mini or something.
Yeah, you must have listened to Connected recently.
So I've actually had that thought for a while because the Mac
I was talking
Pro,
about the colors because they talked
oh,
about
the colors.
yeah,
What did I hear
yeah.
about the colors? I can't remember where I heard about the colors. It was one of it was either upgrade or connected. Side note, just a recommendation. We talk about different shows. Connected, if you like Apple stuff, and you are you need to laugh at all. Connected is an excellent show to hear about Apple stuff and get some really good laughs. As Mike discovered somewhat recently,
Week.
he can't go to sleep. He can't listen to Connected when he's trying to go to sleep.
I can't listen to Connected while I'm trying to go to sleep, and I can't listen to Connected while I'm trying to work.
Oh yeah, you can't. Basically, you need to be doing something that doesn't require any thought. So you can't be trying to do your job and listen to Connected because you're going to lose focus, and you can't be trying to go to sleep because you're going to laugh. Which I discovered this. Actually, I think I'm the one who discovered that first. I discovered that about a month ago. Like I cannot listen to Connected and go to sleep because, yeah. But good show, very funny, informative, but very very funny. And I don't really say that about very many things. The funny part, anyway. But one of the limitations of the current M1 Macs, which is what Apple is calling their chip that goes into the Mac, is they only go up to 16 gigs of RAM. They're also capped at 2 terabytes of storage, whereas some of the current Intel machines can go up to 8 terabytes of storage. And in the case of the Mac Pro, up to 1.5 terabytes of RAM, which just still is mind-boggling. Yeah. See,
That's more money than what I got.
Man, the cost for that RAM could buy you a couple of Mac Minis, dude.
Right.
Seriously. But one of the things, so we're not going to summarize it. We will link to a couple of things. We'll link to Apple's event video on YouTube. And if you have at this point missed the announcement, and we'll try linking on yourownpay.com/dm62 is where you can find these links to some articles kind of explaining what Apple announced. If you have not seen any of this. But the M1 chip, so basically they have packaged everything onto one chip. So the RAM is on the chip, the storage controller is on the chip, and then of course the CPU, GPU, all of that stuff is on the chip. Right? That's Apple's chip with all that stuff on that one chip. So they're doing what they call shared memory architecture, I think. So again, speaking a little out of my comfort zone, typically in an Intel-based computer, I'm saying Intel based, it probably applies to other machines too, but I'm saying Intel because I'm sitting in front of one. And it's what I use. Typically in an Intel based computer, you have your RAM, you have your storage, you have your processor chip. An application that is needs to use RAM has to pass that information through like the processor over to the RAM controller, and then the RAM controller says, hey, give this application 2 gigs of RAM. Same thing with the storage controller. If they want to write something, they have to pass that information through a third party. It's not a direct talk to the RAM, talk to the storage type of situation for an application that's running. Or for the system on a chip that's running. In Apple's case, my understanding of it is that conversation is more direct on the lower level. Like it is more of a direct conversation between the processor and the RAM, and between the processor and the storage controller and all of that stuff, which in theory should speed things up a whole lot faster. It could also eliminate the need for such massive amounts of RAM because the SSD is going to be faster. The storage writing and release, more importantly, the releasing of RAM by a process should be much more efficient, to the point that maybe and I'm guilty of this too, like I think we all are looking at the limitations of RAM from one or two lenses, if not through both of these lenses. Number one, traditionally, the more RAM you can get, you always want to get more RAM. That's always been my recommendation to people. Bump your RAM up before you bump anything else. Bump your RAM, because you can't probably fix it later. Because applications need a lot of RAM. Chrome needs a lot of RAM. It's greedy.
Yes.
And the other lens that some people are probably looking at this through is, performance. Like, I need a lot of RAM to be performant. How can Apple sell computers that max out at 16 gigs of RAM? So where I think that we all are possibly making a mistake is, let's talk about the performance first. Like, I think that the overall performance of these computers with 16 gigs of RAM is going to be reasonable. Actually, I think it's going to blow, well outstrip expectations of people based on the computers that they released. 2 points that I have not really heard a lot of people make is, number one, you can never max the MacBook Air past 16 gigs of RAM anyway. The Mac Mini that they're selling right now is not their upgraded 2018 Mac Mini replacement. It is a newer Mac Mini that slots in below that. The 2018 Mac Mini that can go up to 64 gigs of RAM was talked about by Apple as a pro level machine. That's why it's space gray. The new one is silver, which tells you it's the consumer version. And the MacBook Pro that they're selling, which I had kind of forgotten this too, because I think they put the touch bar in the lower end 13-inch a year or so ago. This is the lower end MacBook Pro. So this is the MacBook Pro that when they upgraded all the MacBook Pros to have Thunderbolt 3 and the touch bar, this is the MacBook Pro that came out that did not have a touch bar. It still had the physical F keys on it. This MacBook Pro was released before they upgraded the MacBook Air with its Retina screen and all of that stuff. So for us at the time when it was announced, it was like, well, this is kind of their replacement for the MacBook Air, because that little MacBook one port thing wasn't doing all that well performance wise. But then they brought back the MacBook Air and really confused the whole lineup again, because now you got two 13-inch MacBook Pros, two different variations. One, they both now have touch bars, but one only has 2 ports, and the higher end 13-inch Pro has 4 ports. And then you have the bigger 16-inch Pro. So I think for that lower level Pro, it sort of makes sense a little bit if you factor in the fact that pro to Apple doesn't necessarily mean what pro to other people means all of the time, right? The 13-inch MacBook Pro that has the M1 chip right now is a laptop. It's still very light. It's only 0.2 pounds heavier than the Air, but it has a fan, whereas the MacBook Air now does not have a fan. That means that it can do high performance at a more sustained rate because it's able to cool the chip, whereas as the MacBook Air gets up under heavy load, it is going to have to throttle down its processor speed to keep the temperature down because there's not a fan. Now, they probably did some clever stuff with cooling, etc., with the MacBook Air, so it won't be, burning you up. It won't be hot. You can't, cook your egg on it or something, but it is going to naturally throttle itself back as it reaches the thermal envelope there. But the other reason I feel like people are kind of underestimating what these computers are going to be capable of is because the only frame of reference any of us have at this point is comparing them to a Intel based computer or AMD, if you happen to use Windows stuff, or comparing them to Apple's other lineup of products that have Apple custom silicon in them and have had, which is the iOS/iPad OS products. Yep. And I don't think either of those is a fair comparison. It literally is comparing apples to oranges. Even in the case of the iPad, it is literally comparing apples to oranges.
And by the time you hear this episode, there will be a lot more information out about the actual benchmarks tests and everything, because this comes out in December. So people are
benchmarks will be out. The regular public will actually have theirs by this time too, so it won't just be reviewers. And we'll link to some of this stuff. We will link to some of the more interesting things that have come out in the intervening time explaining this. But I felt I had to get on the record saying stuff. Just like I think I'm on the record somewhere where I said there is going to be a desktop version. They have to do a desktop Apple Silicon Mac for the first release, because if they don't, everybody's going to say, oh, Apple just made a bunch of Macs with iPad chips and they can't do shit when it comes to desktop powered on. I did not say those exact words, but I did say that they have to do a desktop Mac. I've said it on several occasions to several different people.
And Remington shared his thoughts too.
Yeah, he said, man, they gotta make a desktop Mac, man, because if they don't, I don't want to buy that shit. Like that's what Remy said.
Exactly. So reach out to him on Twitter unless you have anything else, Damashe.
Reach out to Remy on Twitter.
God, no. Reach out to Damashe at DAMASHE on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Payon, PAYOWN. And links to everything mentioned in today's episode are at
yourownpay.com/DM62.
You've been listening to Your Own Pay Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, visit yourownpay.com/cast for exclusive content and to contact us today. We're eager to hear your thoughts and about how you're making this podcast your own. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon. The Your Own Pay Podcast, yourownpay.com.